As a child, I grew up in what I would call hard conditions or tough conditions. Tough because of the lack of resources, maybe. Tough because of the lack of support at times from people that you would expect to support you, like your family or some of your family. But I realized that we all experience tough times. What distinguishes us is how we think, how we perceive ourselves, how we see ourselves, as people. So when we talk about the power of the mind, we're talking about the power the mind has to determine where you are going. The power the mind has to determine how far you can go as a person, as a human being, despite your background, despite the disadvantages that you may have gone through. How do you see yourself? What do you believe in? Do you see yourself as a person who can make a difference? Or do you see yourself as just a nobody? So for me, it's very important for the young people to realize that the power is in them to do whatever that they want. They can achieve anything they can possibly think of. If you want to be a president, you can be the president. If you want to be a scientist who finds the cure for Ebola, you can be that scientist. But it all starts in the mind. The greatest battles that have been won started in the mind, and they ended with the mind. So those are my thoughts on the power of the mind. My name is Nokuthula Danisa. I used to have a nickname, but maybe I shouldn't say my nickname. I am from Umlazi, N section. That's where I grew up. I identify myself as a person who loves people. I love interacting with people. I love learning about different cultures. I'm hoping one day I'll speak one more language from the languages that I speak. I'm a person who loves nature. I love hiking. So I identify myself as a down-to-earth person, easy to hang with. So I'm a process engineer by profession. And I work in a petrochemical company. That is a very interesting thing because I get to solve a lot of problems, which is a part of who I am. I love solving problems. I love making things right and make sure that they work according to the way they were designed to work. My career started actually much later. I think I knew I wanted to do chemical engineering much later at grade 12. But I've always known that I love knowing how things work. I've always been a curious person, and I loved science and I loved chemistry. So I wanted something that will involve those two subjects more than anything. Initially, I wanted to be an astronaut. I was a nerd. But in high school, you are only given two options. It's either you choose commercial subjects or science subjects. So commercial meaning your accounting, your commerce, business economics, and all of that, and all of those subjects. And then science obviously is your math, science, and then some languages, and then technical drawing, etc. So I chose the ones that I loved from primary school. but there was not really much interaction in terms of the different options that you have in terms of your career. But fortunately, when we were in grade 10, it was then standard 8, there was a teacher that was new that came in, and he was very passionate about making sure that students understand what options are there. So he would give us books to learn about different subjects and how you can follow what career that you were probably thinking about. So my journey started there in grade 10. I started reading about these different careers. Initially, I thought I would be an analytical chemist, which is what my sister was doing at the time because she was much older than me. And then I thought maybe I could be a doctor because I love people, I love helping people. But I gave myself a chance to actually think about those career choices. I went to volunteer in a hospital because I thought, okay, maybe I could be a doctor. I volunteered for like 3 weeks. On the second week, I knew this is definitely not gonna work. So that was out of the picture. So now I was left with chemistry courses or engineering because I'd read about engineering. And then I applied for sponsorship for my varsity studies because I knew there was going to be no money. And I sort of decided whichever was successful between these companies, I'm going to follow that path. And lo and behold, chemical engineering succeeded. And the more I read about it, the more interested I was in it. And then I decided to follow that path. And I don't regret that decision. My varsity experience was very eye-opening. Before I get into the subject, I think it's important for the guys to know that the environment from high school, where you are around people that you know, people that you are used to, you are comfortable with, teachers that will follow up on you, and it's that kind of a life that it's a bit comfortable. And then you get to university where it's a mixing pot, where different cultures meet. Kids from different provinces are there, from different backgrounds, different statuses. So it was very challenging at first because you realize that you are actually just a number. No one really knows you by name until they've gotten used to you, probably 6 months from the time you start. So it can get a little bit lonely. But what I advise the kids out there to do is to just throw yourself in and make sure you talk to people, open yourself up to new relationships, and it makes your varsity experience much more bearable. Okay, so I was there to do my engineering. I had a sponsor from one of the petrochemical companies. I was excited. The requirements for chemical engineering is actually 38 points. You need to pass your matric, and you need to pass particularly your mathematics, not your maths lit, but the pure mathematics and pure sciences. That's the entry requirement. English, just to make sure that you can communicate with people. So those are your entry requirements. What I thought I was going to find in chemical engineering was a lot of chemistry. Lo and behold, the only time we did chemistry was in first year. That was the last time I saw chemistry. So first year was in essence mostly your mathematics, your physical science, your chemistry. So it was mostly just science. And then from second year, then you start doing courses that are mostly chemical engineering. So those would be your mass balances, your mass transfer, your thermodynamics, your process controls, your process dynamics, all of those things that make you understand how processes work, how to solve problems, how to simulate problems, for different kinds of industries. So those are the kinds of courses that you find at university. The challenges beyond just the environment are the actual content of the courses. It's not, at least for me, it wasn't that easy to capture like I did in high school. So it required me to apply myself, to study, to give myself long hours of just studying the content, doing my tutorials, and really being committed to what I'm doing just to make it for my tests and my evaluations and assignments. And also another challenge that I faced was that in high school we didn't really have computers. And you find at university most things, they use computers. So I had to now teach myself how to type, teach myself all of these basic things about computers, Word, Excel, those are just the basics. Other kids would probably be much more fluent in these things. So for me, that was another challenge beyond just learning the computer programming that we needed to do. Excuse me. So that just taught me a little bit about life, that you need to understand that there will be challenges, but if you apply yourself and you are committed to what you are doing, you will succeed. The course takes 4 years, and the sponsor has expectations where you are required to pass your course on record time, and that was one of the requirements for my sponsorship. And because of the content of the courses, it was not possible for me to finish on record time. So unfortunately, I lost my sponsor when I was doing my 3rd year, which was very close for me. I didn't understand how come. So I was left with 2 more years to do. It looked as if I could make it in 5 years. I managed to apply for my financial aid, NSFAS, and I got my NSFAS. I qualified for it, and I used that to complete my degree, and I'm very thankful for that. So I finished my degree not in 5 years, but in 6 years. So that was another blow to me because I thought I was smart. All in all, it's a very interesting course. It's challenging. You need to apply yourself, but it's satisfactory. You never have a bored moment at all in your life. So that's my varsity days. Now I was doing my final year at UKZN, and there was a CAREXPO where companies come in and they advertise themselves, and potential final year students can also advertise themselves to the companies. So we were supposed to be attending, but we decided, you know what, we are going to go out there and we will advertise ourselves. So there were different tables, and we were walking into different companies and introducing ourselves. So it was a nice experience. And then we went into one of the tables, and Shell was there, and they were looking for final year students, and we were saying, we are final year students. And they were saying, okay, you look confident, so we think that you guys, maybe we can call you for interviews. We were excited, we were pumped up. The long and short of it is we passed the interviews, and we were employed by Shell. And I was one of the graduates, and I was employed, and I was given a task or a role of being a business analyst. So this was a new world to me, and looking back, I really I appreciate the opportunity that was given to me, because I don't think I would have gotten that opportunity had I not started at Shell. So this was a corporate industry where I got to work with people who are involved in supply chain. So this is now the supply side of the petroleum industry. So Shell is a petroleum company. So I was working in Joburg, and again, a culture shift for a KZN girl. and it was very interesting. I got to meet good people who were willing to help. So that's where my career started. So I was a business analyst, but that was short-lived. I got another role which was going to be based in Cape Town as a product optimizer or a product scheduler. So what you do is you work closely with the refinery or the production department, where you make sure that your products reach your customers on time and on spec. So they must meet certain specifications so that the customers are satisfied with the product. Again, that was a mind-blowing experience where I get to interact with traders, I get to interact with contract people, I get to interact with marketers. So that was an absolute great experience that I had for 2.5 years. I was working in that department in Cape Town. And then I got an opportunity, which I've always wanted to go and work in a refinery because I wanted to be exposed in what I had studied, which is chemical engineering. So I went to SURNAME to work there as a young technologist. And that now for me, I thought, okay, I have arrived. This is my thing. I'm gonna just kill this thing. It's perfect. I'll be an expert in no time. I get there and you find the experience in there. You are dealing with years of experience, and you understand from the moment you walk in that you do not know anything. It's a humbling experience, but it's an opportunity to absorb as much as possible. So from what you have studied to the actual application of your engineering, it's two different things, two different worlds. You get to understand that sometimes things you studied are only good on paper. You have to make adjustments on what is on paper to make sure that it is actually implementable and it makes sense. So I got to work in a storage facility, and that's when my actual engineering experience started. And I'm still learning. It's a very long learning curve, but it's absolutely a bliss to work with different kinds of people. You're working with service providers or contractors. You are involved in a lot of projects sometimes. So it's a very exciting world. There is no second day that looks the same, as you're experiencing new things all the time. So that's my journey in a nutshell. My role at SURNAME is a process engineer or a technologist, and what we do is we do a lot of things. We optimize the process. In other words, we make sure that we produce fuel. So what we produce, especially on my unit, are your gas, which the kids would know as your gas from your premise stove. That's what you use at home, but we call it LPG. We produce petrol, we produce diesel, we produce paraffin, we produce the wax. Some of the wax that we produce is used in candles. There's a lot of material or products that come out of a refinery that we use on our everyday life or everyday activities. So what a chemical engineer is doing is to make sure that those units or the plant that is producing those things is running as it should, and it's running safely. In other words, it doesn't hurt anyone who is working in the plant, and it is running sufficiently to make money, to make profit for the refinery. So on a daily basis, we do unit checks. So in other words, we have a spreadsheet that we use in the mornings to check that is the unit condition still looking okay. You have parameters where your unit is supposed to run within, or we call them operating envelopes. So you're making sure that your unit is running within that operation envelope. And you are checking on your specifications. Are the products that you are producing still on spec? Are they as per the requirements for your customers? You are checking if there were any incidents overnight that happened. If there are, you will be involved in the investigation, and the investigation has to end up teaching us something about that specific incident so that it doesn't happen again. So sometimes when we are running the unit, there will be changes that will be required in the plant. And there's something that we call PCRs or MOCs, which are a plant change request. So it goes through a process where you write down what you want to change, the reason for changing those things, and you have to rank it in terms of the safety aspect. If you don't do that change, how will it affect the plant? So it's a very strict process that goes through different meetings where discussions where we have discussions on how are you going to do that change, and how is it going to change your current situation? Is it really going to help? Is it cost effective? So all of those activities we get involved in to put our engineering or our expertise into to the actual change. So that's one of the things that we do. And then now and again we have shutdowns where we have to maintain, where we fix, where we clean the units that are producing these fuels. So before the shutdown, you as a chemical engineer have to specify some of the activities that need to be done on the units. So you are involved in the preparations. You are involved during the shutdown where the unit has been taken down and they've been opened. You have reactors, you have columns, you have vessels where you need to check what was making the unit not to perform at its best. So sometimes you'll have some of the sludgy stuff that is plugging your drain points, your nozzles, and all of that, as little as it sounds, affects how optimal your unit is operating. So you need to make sure that those units are properly cleaned, that they are fixed where they need to be repaired, and you need to make sure that before they close them or before we reinstate them, they are reinstated as per design or as per requirement, so that when we do start up, we start up safely and we can run the unit again optimally. So you get involved in those things which we call shutdowns. You get involved in projects, which is a very fun and exciting thing to experience, because you get to be involved in the design of whatever unit that you are trying to design. It could be improving the current unit. It could be making a whole new unit altogether. So you are involved in those projects where you are specifying the operating conditions. You are specifying the required throughput for your unit. So you get involved as a chemical engineer in those things. It's very important, and it's I think one of the things that you learn in those activities is to trust yourself. You need to trust your capabilities, but you also need to learn to ask if you do not know. So that's one of the things you learn as a chemical engineer. It's a very humbling experience where you need to admit that you do not know everything, and you have to go and inquire from people who've gained years of experience. So that's the life of a chemical engineer. Challenging but fun. Five years from now, I would really love to see myself as a planning or refinery planner or refining planning lead. So that requires, I say that because I've had experience in the commercial or in the corporate side of the whole petrochemical industry. And now that I have seen how the refinery works, it would really be nice to be involved in the planning of the whole activity. So the planning of the production, the planning of the supply to customers. So I would really love to see myself transforming from a person who wears overalls every day to a person who's actually an in-betweener, a person who understands how the production side works and also links that with the supply side. So that's where the refinery planner comes in. That's where I would like to see myself.